The fugazi continues. What am I talking about? So in Mount Bellevue, I believe it was, or is, Mount Bellevue, Texas, a young student by the name of Darryl George has been having a tough time in school. This young brother, call it what, put it into whatever category you want to put it in. But Darryl George, a student at a Texas high school, was suspended. Not because of guns, not because of fighting, not because of stealing, not because he was being disruptive. I can go on and on. But the young man was suspended from his school because of his hair. He was suspended because he had locks, dreadlocks. And in Western culture, or should I say stateside, locks are revamped at the roots. I can only speak about what my eyes see. I don't travel abroad. I don't travel overseas regularly. But the locks are reinforced, rejuvenated, retwisted. Scalp is refreshed at the roots. For those that can't follow, or for my white brothers and sisters, if you take your index finger, drive it straight through your hair and touch your scalp, the locks are refreshed at that point. I'm not talking about afro and then locks. I'm talking about a neat look. I want to be very specific. Timeout. Side note. Ladies and gentlemen, the word is specific. Specific. Not, let me be Pacific. I think that's an ocean. The word is specific. But getting back to Mr. George, Darryl George, young man at the Texas high school. This guy had locks and they were rejuvenated at the roots. The young man was suspended because, according to the school, he violated the district's dress code. And I hate to use it in this term, but the man went home, did his time, went back to school. Guess what happened? He got suspended again. Trigger warning. And I'm talking to myself. I've been discriminated because of my hair. I don't want to get into anything else but the subject matter at this point. We're talking about hair. India Irie, I am not my hair. I'm back. Trigger warning. For those out there, if you know, you dadgummit know. I ain't gonna hold you. It's one of them things where if you're in a workplace and somebody say something left ways to you or sideways to you, or they come talking out the side of the neck, it makes you kind of want to spaz out, right? I ain't gonna hold you, but it does something to your whole internal self. Sorry. Or pardon me. It makes you want to just go off. Let me stay on topic. Darryl George went back to school because his stance was, I'm not not violating policy. Based on research, I saw one parent, and that was his mother. So I'm assuming that they took this on the chin and said, we're going to hold our position. We're going to hold our water. We're going to hold our stance, and you go right back to that school. And you stick your chest out and your shoulders back, and you go right back to school. And I'm speculating, or I'm imagining how that conversation went. Nonetheless, the young man went back to school and got suspended again. So total suspension time, 2 weeks. And I hate to say it, but we could still be counting. According to the school code, male students' hair will or should not extend below the eyebrows and the earlobes. Now, let me give you a visual, please. It's not uncommon for men to have shoulder-length hair nowadays, especially with locks. Let's just say, for the sake of narrative, that this young man's hair went below his eyebrows and his ear lobes. Well, you may be saying, well, Don, tell us. What do you mean, let's say? What did his hair look like, Don? Come on, man. Right, okay, so his hair was an updo, ladies. I'm sure you guys can identify what an updo is, right? An updo, a do that's up in something, a bun or something. But if you think about how locks are rejuvenated at the roots, imagine the locks being compacted in with cross reinforcement to make it look like a packed down afro, but even neater. Why? Because it was creative. And it's like me, like when I hate to compare the two, but the best thing I can give is how much time and attention I put into my lawn. When I cut my lawn or when I mow my lawn, I love to see rows. When I vacuum the carpet, I love to see rows, right? It's something about the aesthetics of being neat. I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about anyone else. This man goes back with his locks intact. Let me give some context. And again, trigger warning for those out there who may have had experiences like Darryl, like Dante, where you know this hits home, right? September 1st in Texas, or at least let's stick to Mount Bellevue. Mount Bellevue, the Crown Act went into effect September 1st. For those who don't know, the Crown Act means create a respectful and open world for natural hair. C, create. R, respect. O, open. W, world. N, natural hair. Crown Act. It went into effect September 1st. Well, what is the Crown Act? It's a law prohibiting discrimination based on one's hair texture or protective hairstyles such as locks, braids. Let's stop right there. The man had locks. But the Crown Act is supposed to prohibit discrimination based on one's hair texture. But he goes to school and they suspend him. So tell me, what is that violation of? Comment down below. Talk me off the ledge. Comment down below. That's a metaphor. I'm good. So the student in question, Darryl, his lock style was rather nice. But the school's retort was, and here we go with the fugazi. Well, if it's down, it's too long. You never saw it down. You never saw it down. So how can you determine if this guy's hair goes below his eyebrow or his earlobes? Do you have daily inspections that state All individual hairstyles must be combed out, straightened, and down. If I'm not mistaken, your criteria said length should not proceed past eyebrows, past earlobes. He's got an updo. I'm heated. So this guy's been in school suspension, and his mother gets on camera and say, let me just say what it is about Darryl. Right now, he's failing. Because of the man's hair. Sounds like microaggression. No, it's not microaggression. Sounds like systemic racism. No, it's not systemic racism. You know what it is? Hate. Let's call it what it is. It's hate. I'm not going to sit up here and say rules are made to be broken. However, even in the military, individuals do certain things so that they can have their own identity while staying in regulations. Some servicemen and women that can grow facial hair that do not have inspections every day may skip a day of shaving, but if they know they have a PI, personal inspection, they will shave. Are these kids inspected every day? But the mother's plea is, and I'm proud of her, and I know what you guys are thinking, why don't they just move, go to another school? You guys think it's that easy? We're in a recession. Pardon me. Who's giving up residence like that and just saying, I'm just going to relocate? Do you realize that names carry with you? It's called school record. But I know us. We got all the answers, right? So have a seat. Let me just share this with you. And you may be like, why didn't they do their research before they moved to the area? Well, this is what I didn't tell you. The family, mother and son, had just moved to Mount Bellevue. So this was a school and district. And I'm trying to understand. I think this is like one of those tri-city things where they share stadiums, where they share schools because of population. You know, sometimes it's classification by A's when it comes to athletics. I don't understand the Texas thing, but I'm just going off of what the report says. And you guys want to know what the irony is about this situation? The name of the school, the name of the school, the name of the school that is going through this fugazi with this young man, the name of the school is called Barber Hill High School. Barber Hill. Speaking of irony, I really, thoughts and prayers out to that mother and son, because obviously this is causing some type of PTSD that's going to either, and see, there was a, let me go back to this. I'm not off of this, right? Don loves kids, right? And I'm not talking about the babies. I'm talking about those adolescents that are about to hit life. This is the point where we don't let go. They're not adults. They're not capable of making mature decisions in some aspects. Yes, it's one thing to raise a child, right? It's one thing to tell a child that the stove is hot, so don't put your hand on it, but it's also reinforcements that's needed. And sometimes we let them go and call them our compadres, right? We call them our peers, right? Mothers don't become mothers to children anymore. They become friends. Fathers don't become fathers to their children anymore. They become partners. T to John Morant. Why did I just say that? But it's the best example I can give because I gave a soliloquy earlier in one of my pods about, let me get off of that. Go back and look at the previous pod. The title of the pod was called How Many of Us Have Them? But the irony in the school was it's called Barber Hill. Thoughts and prayers out to that mother and child. And God bless him because he's failing. Because he's not allowed to interact in the classroom. I hope that teacher has an ounce of love and are calling, or teachers are calling his mother going, hey, listen, I understand what's going on. Let me send you these assignments, but also we video record it, or we have some notes that we can pass on to him. But this dude is failing, and we don't know what kind of effect this is going to have on him in the future. But there was a wrestler, and I'm going to get off of this. There was a wrestler, I want to say he was in tournaments, right? I wrestled. You can have takedown tournaments, and you can have those all-day tournaments. But you know how tournaments go. For those that in track, you know it's an all-day thing. For those AAU, you know, right? So there was a wrestler, I want to say, in a tournament. I'm drawing a narrative, but this is factual. This wrestler was nice like that. But he was told that he could not compete because he had to cut his hair. And I'll be damned if the brother didn't cut his hair so he can wrestle. Let me read this thing one more daggum time. The Crown Act, a law prohibiting discrimination based on one's hair texture or protective hairstyles, such as locks and braids. Do you guys remember in the pandemic? How many of you guys had Zoom calls? Right? When people could not get to your local salon, where people could not get to your local barber, where people didn't have the skill set to take care of their own hair because they've always used it as a paid service. So on those Zoom calls, be honest, how many of you guys out there judged people based on how they looked? And those that are listening to me who know me personally, I used to always say this statement. Just because it's the pandemic doesn't mean we have to look like pandemic. Get up, get back into your normalcy of your routine, get on camera, and have some pride about it. It was just a form of encouragement. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was tough love. I don't know. But it was the best offering that I can give someone when you see someone slipping, they falling, and maybe struggling to get up. Rest in peace, DMX, for that quotable.
A Texas judge has sided with the school district in a very controversial case involving a decision to suspend a student over his dreadlocks. Darryl George is a junior at Barbers High School, and his lawyers claim that the teen's hairstyle was protected by the state's Crown Act, which prohibits discrimination based on hair. Well, the back and forth has been going on for months, and because the school district said George was not following the dress code, he spent most of the school year in school suspension or at a disciplinary program. Well, now that Texas judge has ruled that the state's Crown Act does, in fact, not make it unlawful for school dress codes to limit a student's hair length. Our Morgan Norwood joins us now. So, Morgan, first of all, we want the audience to hear the reaction to this ruling from Jolanda Jones, the Texas State Representative for House District 147.
And one of the ways that we as black people are able to grow our hair long, like maybe some of our European counterparts have, is that we lock our hair or we braid our hair. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point, she says. Well, what do we know now after this ruling?
Look here, I can just say it's a pretty shocking decision, and it was reportedly met by sighs and frustrations inside that courtroom, including from advocates and supporters of Darryl George. I mean, this was a months-long legal battle, right? The district had asked the judge to weigh in on whether their policy violated the Crown Act, which, of course, we know prohibits race-based hair discrimination at work or at school. So in this case, the student handbook said that male students' hair can't extend past the eyebrows or the earlobe. So, again, all of this centers around hair length, right? The judge saying it doesn't necessarily discriminate against the hairstyle, only the length. So George and his family refused to cut his hair. Instead, we've seen him wearing it straight back away from his face, above the earlobes, right? The district said it still violated the policy and then he's since faced punishment on that. And based on the ruling that we got today from the judge down there in Texas, the punishment removing George from the classroom, that in-school suspension cure still stands.
Well, and we have seen the advocates not only in his area, but across the country.
Yeah, you know, advocates have really pushed back on this, right? They say this rule is really a loophole, you know, allowing districts to still discriminate on certain hairstyles. Let me just take off my correspondent hat for a second. I can speak as an African-American woman. You know, in order to have braids in the first place, your hair needs to be at a certain length in order to catch the strands, cornrow it back, or even lock it. So texture and length are key to getting this hairstyle, which is, of course, we know is rich in culture and to many other heritages, has significance, has meaning. So what advocates are saying here, Kira, is that rulings like these are a way to control or prohibit these types of hairstyles. We are getting reaction from the district at this hour. They're saying the decision, the Crown Act decision, was meant to allow braids, locks, or twists, but never intended to allow unlimited student expression. So we see a little bit of back and forth on both sides of this, and I'd have to imagine for the family here, they have plans to fight this.
And you bring up such an important point that there are so many things that make up our culture, and hair is definitely one of them, specifically in this situation. Appreciate you, Morgan. Thank you.